Welcome to the Talk and Chatter experience powered by Gasoline Alley Harley-Davidson and M33 Productions. For all your photo and video requirements, get in touch with us today. My guest today is Stephanie Redman. Stephanie is a professional motorcycle coach and racer. She has educated hundreds of riders, but specialises in getting the full potential out of younger racers. Stephanie is based in Andorra for 2/3 of the year, preparing riders for the CEV Championship. Within the podcast, you'll get a few tips on riding, some ASBK predictions for 2022, and you'll get a few stories regarding coaching for the last 10 or 12 years. Some crackers in there as well. If you get the chance, head over to YouTube and hit subscribe, give us a rating and review on iTunes, and we'll be back with another show very soon. Welcome, Stephanie Redman.
Thank you. It's good to be here, actually.
You reached out to me, which is a nice feeling on my own end, but I've seen you travelling overseas last year, or for years now, and you're someone that I wanted to get earlier on, but you're never damn in town. So,
Yeah.
welcome.
Thank you. Yeah. It's like I watch all your stuff, and I love what you're doing, and the way you promote the sport, and I don't know, it's just cool. It's fun, but it's also informative, and yeah, like your style.
Awesome. Well, who's Stephanie Redman? We'll start with that.
I'm a coach, I guess, is probably my main identity. Coach 49, I run under. 49 was my race number.
Yep.
So that's where that came from. And coach, obviously, is a coach. But I also like Coach 49 because for me, I'm just like one of many coaches, you know. I'm not the only one. There's heaps out there operating, and I think we need a lot in the sport to keep boosting it. So, yeah, that's me. Mainly I'm a coach, and outside of that, it's pretty much bikes, everything. If I'm not coaching, I'm doing something with motorbikes.
Motorbikes or push bikes or something with wheels, eh?
Yeah, the cycling and stuff like that. Yep.
With the coaching thing, it's something I was going to ask you a bit later on, but we'll touch on it now. It seems very, very popular. There's not popular, but it's a requirement now. Hey, more than just there's a couple of riders at the start that were using coaches, but now it's a real requirement for riders, isn't it? Yeah,
it's actually really cool. Like, you know, motorsport's an interesting one. Coaching is not as highly regarded as a lot of other sports. Like you go soccer, football, everything. They have a coach, swimming coach, tennis coach,
coaching staff, multiple coaches.
Staff. Yeah, and it's just a standard part of the team. But in motorsport, it's not like that. And I know when I got into racing, you get in, you just kind of start figuring it out. I got to a point where I was like, oh, okay, I need a bit of help, and people would give you some advice and stuff like that. And it wasn't until later that I got coaching, and I didn't realise how beneficial it was because no one really talks about it. It's not a big thing. It's mainly seen as a benefit for road riders or, you know, track day guys and stuff like that. Once you get to a certain level in racing, people just, I don't know whether it's, you know, the additional cost or whether it's just not something that's been as highly regarded as it should have been.
Yeah.
But for sure, it's not as prominent. But now you're seeing things like Casey Stoner coming into GP, you know, and the effect that that's having on the team. And you got guys like
Chaz Davies.
Chaz Davies stepping into Aruba, and VR46, you know, have their coach in there as well. So it's starting to be seen as more of like an essential role in developing riders, and it is because it's not just about the bike.
Because no one masters it. Like, no one's ever a master, are they?
What is a, like, you know,
what's perfection?
What's perfection? Yep. And on a bike, there's no the measure is the lap time, but it's always, you know, improving. So it's hard to tell. Because
it was interesting. Like you look at Valentino Rossi, 9 world titles, great history. Went for many years without a coach, but the last probably 5 years he went and got a coach to help with, like, if someone in that field is looking for that and has ridden bikes for, you know, probably 37 years, probably since he was 4 or 5. Everyone needs a coach then, really, hey? Yeah,
I mean, he's such a good example, and I love using Rossi as an example because his career is like spread for so long that he's had to adapt. You know, there was that period there where he was struggling, and you see his style change, the way he rides the bike. Everything had to change to adapt to the different bikes, the different riders, the different tyres. So, yeah, he's a really cool example to show why coaching is important.
When you were racing, obviously, we'll get more into that as well. Was it just one day that you went, okay, I need coaching? Like, I'm missing a chunk here. There's something that's missing. Because you had a relationship with a school for a long time, obviously.
Yep.
Was there just one day?
There was, and It was actually when I tried out to be a coach for the California Superbike School. So,
really?
Yeah. I'd been coaching prior to that out at Morgan Park with like Dave Fuller with Advanced Rider
ART?
Training.
Yep.
Yeah, I was actually there when that started, which is kind of cool. And that was, they're still going and doing an awesome job. And it wasn't until I went to the Superbike School and tried out to be a coach, and they make you sit through their curriculum as like a level 1 student, and then they give you an exam at the end of the day and stuff like that. And it wasn't until I sat through that I went, I don't know as much as what I thought I did. And I was like, there's actually a lot more to learn. And it wasn't because I was, arrogant and thought I know everything. It was just because I hadn't been exposed to the fact that there was more information out there. So that was kind of the day that I went, yeah, there's more to this, and I want to know what it is.
Wow. Had you read the books, obviously, before?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
No, so when I applied to try out, because they were bringing the school to Queensland, so there was a couple of Queensland locals up there that they reached out to and said, hey, we'd be interested in having you try out. We recommend you read the books. And I was like, yeah, okay, cool. And Ben, I think I was like 20 years old at the time, racing pretty fast, thought I was,
pretty good.
Not too bad. Yeah. And I read the book and I'm like highlighting little bits. I'm like, oh yeah, that seems important. And I just skimmed through it. And after I'd coached for a couple of years, I went back and read the books, and I was just like, there is so much gold in here, but I just wasn't looking for it at that point in my riding career. And I guess that's where it comes back to what I'm saying. Like it wasn't that highly regarded to me. I was just like, you get on the bike, you put some good tyres, a good suspension, and away you go. But there's the whole rider element to it as well.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's I think that's what people need to hear. Like, I've never done one, right? I've ridden since I was 3 years old. I've never done, I've done dirt coaching, but I've never done like superbike school, right?
Yep.
Filmed a few, so been able to listen to a few different things, but never actually physically done it. But Ferg here, he's done level 4.
Yep.
I think level 3 or level 4, and he's at me. You've got to do it. It'll unlock you as a person, as a rider.
Yep.
Yeah, and you'll find a lot of bad habits with yourself that you should delete.
Yeah, it's cool. It like as riders, we tend to do too much on the bike.
Okay.
Like we actually, a lot about the superbike school, it gives you the foundation of what you need, but it also removes the things you don't.
Yep.
So it's kind of cool. Like you end up finding like, I'm doing this, but I don't need to be, and I'm making it harder than what it needs to be, and things like that. But for sure, there's just we jump on a bike as a kid. You jump on a push bike and a two-wheeled steering object steers differently to anything else. So you jump on it, you fall over a few times, you get back up, and eventually you figure out how this thing works. And from there on, you progress to a motorcycle. But no one really teaches you why it does what it does and how you should act to control that the best way possible. So you just kind of figure it out as you go with like most things in life, I guess. But yeah, we tend to add a lot of complications in there that don't necessarily need to be in there.
While you're saying that, I'm thinking of something. Like, we all start as a blank canvas, right?
Yep.
So what makes someone ride fast that hasn't had coaching? Is it they've got a different mindset to be able to just push? Because like we all start, we all fall off, we all do our things like on a push bike. I wonder what makes someone a better rider? Because is it just a natural thing that comes through?
There's definitely some natural skills and attributes that you need as a rider, like vision, for example. People that have better vision generally are faster riders.
Okay.
Like they are able to process and see distance and stuff like that. Like they've done some studies on it and shown that a lot of the top riders at the moment have very good vision. Yep. So, if you've got poorer vision, stuff like that can make it harder. Not saying it's impossible or going to, hinder your career, but it's definitely attributes like that can play a part. But feel for traction is probably one of the biggest ones. Yeah. If someone has good feel for traction, they can generally push a lot harder because they can find the limit. But I don't know. I'm not 100% sure how to answer that, to be honest.
Enough. Yeah, it's just something that I thought of when you said about, we all learn from like a piece of rubber, and then you fall off, you pick it up, and then something leans this way, you lean against this way. Oh, okay, then I'm going to countersteer something here, you know, like
Yep.
you learn it, but you don't know what you're doing.
No,
So-
you just instinct is just
instinct
taking
thing.
over.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Where did like, from memory, it was Mini Moto Parklands?
Yes.
Where did it start for you? Is that correct?
That was Minimoto, yeah. That was the start. So I had a neighbour a couple of doors down. He used to race dirt track.
Right.
And from the time I was like 13 or something like that, I just wanted to ride bikes, and I'd go with him on the weekends, and, you know, I'd feel honoured if I could push his bike to the start line and start it for him. And
Wow.
did that for a couple of years and nagged Dad for a bike for a few years as well. And I remember him coming out to watch the dirt track a couple of times, and there was a few ambulances and stuff like that, and he's like, nah, this biking thing doesn't look like a good idea.
So just on that, like your dad, Alan,
Yep.
done heaps for everyone in motorcycles, more than probably most have. Were you guys into bikes
No.
at all?
No. I think he must have had a bad experience when he was younger, because he had regarded bikes as something that were dangerous.
Wow.
And when I was trying to get one growing
Yep.
up, it was like, nah, not interested. He was a car guy, so he was go-karts and sprint cars and stuff like that. So he was not into bikes at all. But it's funny now, because you look at him and motorcycles is his life.
That's
he
him.
loves
Yeah.
it.
I
Yeah.
honestly thought that would have been one of these things for just... So when you guys went to Hatches, I'm guessing,
Yep, Hatches.
he was against it.
Yeah, he just wasn't that interested.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so is there... And then did you get a dirt bike to start with?
No,
Or
I
straight to the
bought
Mini?
one of those little pocket bikes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that was my first bike, and it was mainly because it was cheap and because Dad didn't really know what it was at the time. So saved a bit of money up. I think I was about 15 or 16. And I asked Dad, can I get a pocket bike? And he's thinking it's like this little toy.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, no worries. And then we go to drive and get it, and he's like, oh, what's this thing? I'm like, yeah, this is a pocket bike. He's like, well, we're here now, let's get it. And
Yeah.
from there, it just kind of grew. He started helping me with it because I didn't have any idea what I was doing, and then we figured out there was racing at Parklands, and
Yep.
I was just going to ride the thing around the street. I didn't care. I just wanted to ride. So,
Yep.
yeah, that was how it evolved from there, I guess. And then my little brother got into it, and I think that's what kind of grew the love for it for Dad,
Yeah.
was that it became a family sport. And, you know, we could do it as a family, and the people we met became like family. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, it was pretty cool.
That's incredible. I honestly thought that it was some long-seated family thing through years, because obviously you and your brother raced, and both successful racers at it too. Like, that's, yeah. From starting off at Mini Moto stuff to that, that's pretty damn awesome.
Yeah, we just loved it.
Yeah.
So once we were in, we were boots and all. And
How was Parklands at the time?
it was cool, actually. It was super fun. Like, I think it was done on a Saturday night, so you'd go down at 4:00 in the afternoon and set up and race. And there was a lot of them at that time. Like, when they were brand new, everyone was getting into it. And
Yeah.
there was a few high level races at the time too, like the Lee Smiths, who raced 125
Yep.
GP a lot, and like, even I remember they ran a female class, and their mum was having a go. Mary
Really?
was on there having a go, and
It's Blake, wouldn't it? Blake
yeah,
Lee Smith.
Blake and Jacko, yep.
Yeah. Wow. So
So
their mum had a go as well.
Their mum was on having a go, and yeah, it was just like, it was, good competitive fun,
Yeah.
and it was easy, and it was accessible to a lot of people because it was quite cheap as well.
Because refresh my memory, but I think you and Mike come through doing that at the same sort of era too, hey?
Similar, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, Mike was probably a couple of steps behind me because he's a bit younger.
Okay, yep.
So yeah, he's probably 6 years younger, I would say, than me.
Yep.
So he was kind of more on the junior side, but we were both racing pocket bikes at the same time. I was a senior and he was a junior, but yeah, we were both there at that same sort of time.
Wow. When did you progress up to, like, it was 125s, wasn't it?
Yeah, Dad bought me a 125 GP bike. Would have been, I was 16 because
Okay.
we got invited out to a private track day out at Carnell Raceway at Stanthorpe.
Yep.
And there was a couple of kids, Brad Gross, there was another one, Daniel Wheeler, who were racing at the time. And they had a couple of extra junior bikes.
Yep.
And so Morawaki 80. So I was invited out and was allowed to have a go on that. And I just fell in love with it, obviously, because I'd been riding this tiny little bike. And to me, that Morawaki was like, oh, this is a real bike.
I'm on a super bike.
Yeah. And I just remember being so crossed up on this thing and trying to get my knee down. I
Wow.
crashed it. I got back up, kept going. I rode it until it ran out of fuel and had to push it back to the pits. Like, I just wanted to be on this thing all day. But, yeah, we did that and then decided we'd look at racing, but I was too old for the junior class because I was 16. So Dad bought the 125 GP bike and kind of went off from there.
When we did supermoto stuff together, right?
Yeah.
And I'm talking mid-2000s now.
Yeah, it would have been.
What got you into that side of it?
I was working at Husky at the time, like at...
down at Feeney's one.
Feeney's, yeah. I was working at Feeney's, so I was doing an apprenticeship there, and they ran the Husky team, the Husky Chicks. So they were doing the supermoto, and I was like, oh, well, that looks cool. And they gave me the opportunity to have a ride as well, which was really nice, and had some friends with a bike, and, yeah, it was just more riding. I just wanted to ride bikes, and, yeah, it was
because you had the kitted out bike too, hey?
Yeah, I did.
The good bike.
Yeah, I was very lucky working there. They were really good to me.
Yeah, I remember obviously Tuesday nights and that, 2000 and probably talking 5 or 6. It's a fair while ago now, I'm thinking. It used to be pretty fun out there to do that, eh?
Yeah, they were awesome those nights. And a lot of kids came up through that too, actually. Like it was just, accessible for everyone. You could go out, I think it was $50 and you ride around for the evening, go home and carry on with your normal life during the day.
So were you racing motard at the time, or was that just more ride time?
Nah, it was just a ride time thing. I think I did a couple of rounds and it was just more of an opportunistic thing, I guess.
Nice.
It was fun though, and if I wasn't doing everything else and that, I probably would have done more of it.
So you mentioned apprenticeship before.
Yeah.
Mechanic.
No.
What was it?
Spare parts interpretation.
Oh, really? Down at Husky?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was working in parts, and I wish I'd done mechanic. Like, that side of things really interests me now, and I wish I'd understood more about the bikes and the engines. But it was good because, dealers would ring up and they'd get me on the end of the line, 18 years old or whatever I was, and they'd go, oh, we'd need, this part, and I'd be looking through all the parts fishers going, I don't even know where that would sit in the engine. I'm like frantically trying to run out to the mechanic. Well, what's this? Where would it be? So I learnt a lot there too, and that was really good, good experience.
At that time too, that shop was cranking.
Yeah, they were going great. They had Kajiva, MV, Husky, and, the Husky race teams were going awesome. And they were racing, Trinders were racing the MVs as well, which was really cool at that time. Yeah, so that was really interesting. And
it was like a race team at the shop.
Yeah. Yeah, the mechanics workshop was like right next door to our office, and it was just immaculate, like beautiful red, cabinets with just everything was clean and bright and neat, and it was like a showroom for me. Like proper pride,
and I think that's the part of racing that you really appreciate. You go into a racing workshop and it's the good ones, it's just schmick,
Yeah.
I take a lot of respect in that, eh?
Yeah, same. I appreciated that.
125s. Is it something that should still be here?
Oh, yes, because they're fun. They're an awesome bike. They're so cool.
That's what I think too.
Yeah, they're light. You can throw them around. You can learn a lot on them. The two-strokes are obviously getting phased out because of all the emissions and stuff like that now, but they were fun to ride, and they were a good bike to learn on.
Cost effective.
We could rebuild one ourselves. That was,
That's a huge part.
Yeah, I remember, in about an hour and a half we could have one rebuilt, and we didn't really know what we were doing. So it was good in that sense because as a family we could run one and do an okay job at it, whereas now everything gets outsourced a bit more, I believe.
Because this is what I was going to ask you as well, like how it's sort of changed so much of obviously the Moto 3 bikes come through and they're highly spec'd, highly worked machines. There just seems to be something missing for the privateer, and that's where 125 you could be a wild card and have a really good crack.
Yeah, in saying that, to be a wild card, like Brad Gross did a wild card on one at Phillip Island in, I don't know when it was, but he finished the highest out of any wild card that had ever done it before he actually scored points, which was pretty cool. But he spent a full year building that bike and testing that bike at Phillip Island just to do that. So it was still, even though at a lower level you could run it yourself, it was still not a cheap sport. If you wanted to be up the front, you still had to spend the dollars and have the people that really knew what they were doing.
Ex-factory people, basically, like people that have hung around, that sort of environment, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Did you enjoy, obviously racing the 125 the most out of racing times?
I would say yes. I have a lot of fond memories about that, and it was cool because I got to race my brother as well, and we were pretty competitive, and we were always pretty close too. So it was fun. Yeah. And we had very different riding styles, so we'd end up in some pretty good battles, and I'd have advantages here, he'd have advantages there. So that was cool. Yeah, the 125 as a bike was fun to ride, and the racing for me, like I look back on it and it's probably one of the better times.
If you look back at like that era of racing, there's a pretty packed grid. Excuse me, pretty packed grid too, hey?
Yeah, there was actually. There was quite a few, like, and the 125s was probably one of the thinner grids out of the race series, but like I can remember being on a grid at Eastern Creek in Super Stock 600 when they ran the stock class, and I think there was like 38 bikes on the grid. Like I was, there's just lines and lines of bikes, which is, super cool to see. So it's a shame that we don't quite have the grids like that anymore.
One of the biggest grids I'm guessing you would have been at would have been the 6 hour.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That's a big one, hey?
That was a big one.
Who did you team up with for that? Do you remember?
Stephen Ralph and Fuge from out at...
Craig Alec.
Yeah, Craig Alec. Yeah. Yeah, we did it together.
What was that like to do?
Awesome, because it's a team event. Like the endurance racing is really good because it is a team... Like all of racing is a team event. You cannot do it just as a rider.
Sure.
There's so many people in the background that make it work. But that was cool because there was other people on the bike and you had to have the bike set up so it was suited everyone and everyone had to do the best they could, and you'd high five each other when you come in and stuff like that. So that was cool from that perspective.
It was like a motorcycle sportsman event. A fair few people went down from home, eh?
There was a lot. The endurance events just drew people from everywhere.
Yep.
Like they were such good events, and it's good to see that like St George is starting to bring the 5 hour back and stuff like that. I think they haven't run at Phillip Island because of COVID, but they have intentions of doing it back there again.
Wow.
So that will be really cool.
Yeah, I was talking to someone yesterday. I was like, I did a 1 or 2 hour at Morgan Park once.
Yeah,
and it was like the best fun. Like it is so good. Like you team up with someone. It's just the like TT start, sort of run across the track, start. Just cool. Like it's a good fun event, and everyone takes it serious, but it's not a sheep station serious,
Yeah, I think because you're ending up like it's a race against the clock, really, in the end.
Yeah, it's not a track battle, is it?
No, you're not side by side. So at the first stint is always like that. But then once you start rotating through, you kind of know who's where, but you're just out there doing your own thing, kind of, pacing yourself, cutting as many laps as you can, as quick as you can. So it's nice. It does take that kind of stress out of it, but you're still being competitive.
And there's still hopefully someone on track to chase or, to still battle with, that's that many bikes. There's a lot of bikes on track for that.
Yeah, there's usually someone to follow.
If you look back at that time, that's probably 2010, somewhere around that.
Yeah,
I guess.
Yep.
Do you look at your riding style then and go, geez, I had a fair bit to learn at that point?
Yeah, for sure.
Really?
And I think back at crashes and things like that too, where I go, I blame the tyre or something like that, and I just go, oh no, that was probably something you were doing. And I look at the way like I used to sit on the 125 and stuff like that, and yeah, there was some less than ideal things in my riding at that point, but you can't know everything when you start.
No, definitely not. Do you get much of a time to ride now?
The last year, no.
Okay.
No, just because we were overseas, and when you're over there and the kids are giving it everything they've got, I try and put everything I've got into them. So if we're at a day and I'm riding, it takes away from what I can give them.
Yeah.
So when we're over there, I don't really ride. We got out on the trials bikes and stuff a bit, but in terms of road riding, no. But I just had a couple of days down at Phillip Island with Addicted to Track, and he supplied me a nice R1 to ride, and I got to cut some laps, which was pretty good.
That's good.
Yeah, I'd actually forgotten how much I enjoyed riding. It just puts a smile on your face.
So I was going to ask you, that. Do you still enjoy the riding part? Because what you're doing now would be so rewarding.
Yeah.
Like every part that you're doing with that now would be so rewarding. You probably get it taken away by the riding a bit. You're like, oh, I really enjoy the benefit this gives me. Yeah. The coaching?
The coaching is awesome because you're helping someone with something that they enjoy, and you're seeing them progress and improve, and, the satisfaction that they get from that gives you satisfaction. But, I still enjoy riding, and I probably wouldn't be doing this if I didn't still enjoy riding, because that was kind of the underlying reason why I'm in the sport. But there was a point where for sure it just became like a job, and it was when I was working for the Superbike school and I was trying to, run everything and manage everything and then ride as well, and the riding just ended up becoming a nuisance because it was taking away from everything else that I had to do, like the the priorities that I had elsewhere. So it did become a bit like a job, and in the end I was like, I'd rather just opt to not ride so I can focus on everything else. But I don't think it was because my passion for riding, you know, lessened. It was more the situation was I just had too many other responsibilities.
It's like a burnout, a motorcycle burnout. You're just doing so much around. There's so much to organise and everything. Can we talk about Superbike school stuff?
Yeah, sure.
So what's a year for the Superbike school? Because I remember when you first sort of got into it, you would have been a massive frequent flyer. You were travelling a lot.
We travelled a lot, yeah.
So what's a year do? What do you do in a year for a Superbike school back then?
Well, a typical year back then was probably, I would say, about 40 events in Australia. So 40 event days between Morgan Park, Phillip Island, Sydney Motorsport Park. Then there'd be maybe 4 different events in New Zealand. So you'd be going to a couple of different tracks over there. And then the Australasian branch here, they also service like the Philippines, Taiwan, China, Thailand. Like they do the whole of the Asia Pacific region. So there was, quite a bit of travel.
And ride days, like you're talking, like you're riding, you know, fast bikes a lot. Like 60 days a year, 70 days a year, you reckon? Like 40 here and plus the others? Reckon maybe
would have
more?
been about 80 days a year with the Superbike school, I would guess.
Yeah.
But then, at that same time I was working for Phillip Island Ride Days, and so you'd be riding every day that they had on down there as well. And I think me and one of the other guys from the Superbike school who were both working the ride days looked at it and probably went, there's no one else that would be doing as many laps around Phillip Island as what we are in one year at that time, you know. And you took a bit of the beauty of Phillip Island away too, because you didn't appreciate it as much.
Do you now, like when you went on the R1, you do?
Yeah, it's such an incredible circuit. The speed, especially not having ridden, I hadn't ridden since March last year.
Wow.
And so like not having ridden that long and going to one of the fastest tracks in the world was just like, wow, this is cool. As you're coming around turn 2 and the ocean's out there and the beautiful sun, and it was pretty amazing.
Oh, I'm so pumped. Right there in 2 weeks.
Yeah, you're going to love it.
Yeah, it's so good. Like it's, you know how you say the fun sort of gets out of it. For a lot of people, that's a bucket list. Yeah. You know, like especially from up here, like it's a bit of a journey, and you know, as just a rider.
Yep.
It's one of those things where you're like, oh, I can't wait to get there. You know?
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
It was one cool thing, like with the Superbike school, because you get a lot of people fly in to do it because they could rent the bikes and things like that, and you'd see them go out for the first session and they'd be there with a couple of their mates, and they'd come in and just the smiles they would have, and you look at them and you go, that's what this circuit is, you know. It's just an experience that you don't get anywhere else. What's
one of the most interesting hire bike stories you got? Anything?
Oh,
I bet you there's been a few over the time.
Interesting? There was a lovely guy from Malaysia that came over a couple of times.
Okay.
And he came over with good intentions, you know, to do the school, and he'd do ride days, and he'd always couple them together. So he'd be there for 4 or 5 days on track, and this guy crashed a lot. Like I remember him crashing multiple bikes in one day, and then multiple bikes day after day. And it got to the point where there was no more high bikes to give this guy. Like he'd crashed that many, and you know, for him the money wasn't an issue. He didn't mind. He hadn't hurt himself. He just wanted to keep riding. And it got to the point where Steve was kind of like, we just don't have any more bikes that we can afford to get crashed. We've got more days to run and more people to, you know, put on bikes. And this guy was, you know, obviously very disappointed because he'd come there to ride, and he loved it, and he just wanted to, you know, get coaching and do better and stuff like that. And then I remember seeing him in Malaysia at a track day at Sepang maybe 2 years later. And he came up to me and he's like, oh, hi, do you remember me? And I was like, I do remember you, yes. And he just laughed and he goes, I've got my own bike here. I'm riding. I'm having a great time. I was like, okay, that's awesome. Like, and he was such a nice dude. And we actually spent the day kind of hanging out and talking. But that was probably like, in terms of hire bike stories.
Yep.
Yeah, that was probably one of the most interesting.
That's heavy, eh?
Yeah.
Like, it's because it happens.
It does happen.
All the time, you know, and it's a good excess.
Yeah.
It's a damn good excess. So, yeah, the poor guy, though, you got to feel coming all that way. How do you improve when you got back to Sepang?
He had actually, yeah. And he improved the days there while he was getting coaching and stuff as well, but he just wanted to go fast but didn't want to pull it back enough to correct what needed to be corrected first. So it was like, you know, he'd apply a little bit and then just add too much speed to it. And you're like, it's still not good enough to be going at the pace you're going. And then he, you know, figure that out the hard way. So he's just a little bit excited, I think.
Not the crashing part, but do you see that a lot with coaching? With people, like they'll apply a bit of it and then just try and just blitz it, you know? Do you see that much?
Yes and no. Yep. The ones who want coaching, no. Like if they've actually come to you to get coaching, then they've acknowledged, okay, there's something that I need to fix. It's generally the ones who want like the quick fix or something like that, and they go like, they kind of know there's something to fix, but they're not really invested in the coaching itself, that will do something like that. They're like, oh, yeah, and then they'll go and do part of it and not really, you know, apply it or take the time to do it, because it's very rare that you get a rider and you're like, okay, we got to make this change, and they just go out and it's like instantly done. There's a process that you have to work through, because you change one thing and it changes, you know, 20 other things. Yep. And the riders who want to will go through that process of going, okay, well, I need to change this and XYZ needs to adapt to that. And then there's others who will go and try and do that and don't spend the time trying to fix everything else that goes with that. And they're the kind of ones who don't really get the benefit out of it. You don't always see it result in a crash or anything like that, but they just don't get the full benefit of what you're giving them.
So the investment of everyone's time and energy, they don't just get that full reward out of it, yeah? Yeah,
but you look at the cost of coaching, and this is pretty standard across the board for most coaching now.
Yeah.
They're paying a fair amount to be there. So if they're investing that amount and that time, the day off work, tyres, everything else, they're there to learn. So it's pretty rare that you come across someone like that who's actually there for coaching.
It's not like going to school.
No.
You don't want to Not that you don't want to be there, but come on, some of us don't.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Most motorcycle riders that I've sort of met probably don't really want to be at school too much.
No.
Normal school. This is not superbike school, but
no. Yeah. Some of the kids that I've worked with, it's definitely just get them through school and you know, get them riding fast, because
they need to get that box ticked.
They need to be able to We'll worry about plan B later.
When you did that you know, the trial process for the school, was there a light bulb moment that you went, hey, I really want to do this coaching, like this is something, like you've made a career in this, like this is something that you're obviously passionate about, but was there a light bulb moment that go, okay, this is me now, I want to be a coach?
Not so much at the moment when I tried out. It was more, for me when I tried out, it was more that there was something I could learn, and, you know, I saw it as almost in a selfish way of like, okay, I'm a racer and I want to go faster, and there's things that these people can teach me that I can use to go faster. Yep. The helping people, I've always loved helping people in anything, you know, but for sure the first part of it was that I just love learning, and if I can learn something and if there's people I can learn from, then sure, I'll latch on and take what I can, because it just makes me a better person, it makes me a better coach, a better rider, everything else. So the first part of it was definitely that got me sucked in. But then once I started learning, and the more I could learn, the better coach I could become. And once I realised that, I was like, this coaching thing's cool, because I can actually help these people. I'm not just riding in front of them, go and follow me and hope that they can replicate what I'm doing. I was like, I can genuinely help these people. And for me to see that process play out and like the effect in their riding is rewarding, and that's probably what I love most about it now.
So that's probably the addictive part. You know, you get a real addiction from that.
That's the bit that keeps me coming back. Yep. Like I just keep going, what can I learn next and what can I learn next? And then that just translates through to being able to coach people better and better.
I had a good conversation with a coach in the dirt world.
Yep.
There's a lot of people going into dirt coaching that can't coach. They're fast motorcycle racers.
Yeah.
Do you see that happening a bit in... Okay.
For sure. Yeah. It's just because you can ride fast doesn't mean you're going to be a great coach. Like, and I use the example of Tiger Woods. He's always had a golf coach. You know, if his golf coach is that great, then why wouldn't he be beating Tiger Woods in a competition? And it's not because this guy's, you know, an exceptionally phenomenal golf player. It's because he understands the mechanics behind it and can actually deliver that in a way that's usable to Tiger Woods. And motorcycle coaching is no different. If you can ride fast, it's obviously a benefit because you have the reality on what's going on the bike and the feeling and the sensations and the understanding. But you need to be able to understand it, break it down, and then deliver it to the person that you're coaching in a way that they can use that. And that's kind of where it breaks down a little bit sometimes.
That's where you get the specialist. That's someone that can actually be part B and do the coaching, isn't it, really?
Yeah, and that's what the Superbike school was always really good for, was that they would look for good coaches, not fast riders. Like, all the riders are fast. You could put them all, you know, on an ASBK grid and they'd probably be having a go at Michael Edwards or someone like that. You know, they're not going to be up the front, but they're not going to be, you know, ridiculously out of place. Yeah. And but one thing that they all did have in common was that they had good communication skills, good understanding, the ability to, you know, break things down and process things.
It's an interesting path. Like, it's a very specialised path because a lot of people are bad communicators.
Yeah.
You know, it's to be a good communicator is very difficult for a lot of people. Yeah,
for sure. And it wasn't something I was always good at either.
Really?
Nah, I was terrible as a kid. And as, you know, younger, I couldn't public speak. I couldn't, you know, really articulate what I wanted, what I felt, that kind of thing. So it's definitely something I've worked on over the years as well. And I feel like the better I can get at that, the better I can do my job. But it's a requirement, so it's something that you can work on, and I've had to work on. Yeah,
and it's one of the things you can succeed at. You know, if you put the time to it, it's possible, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. It's a skill, and you can build it. You know, anyone can build it. You've just got to put the time and effort into it.
I speak to Mike a lot, Mike Jones. Southeast Asia, he went to the Superbike schools over there as well with you.
Yeah.
He really enjoyed that over there. Why is it so special over there to coach?
So he'd be referring to Taiwan.
Yes.
And he came to China with us as well, with the Taiwanese promoter.
Right.
And we went to Taiwan for, I think, 8 years in a row, and the people are just awesome.
Really?
They were like family from the moment we met them. They were so welcoming and accommodating and everything. And we would spend, I think, 10 days a year with them. Every December we would go over and run some Superbike schools over there. And, yeah, they just became like family, and we just loved, you know, we look forward to going back every December and seeing these people and hanging out. And one of the American coaches, Jerry, who used to come with us, he's actually learnt Mandarin.
Wow.
And he's living over there now. He's got a Taiwanese girlfriend. He's been living there for a couple of years, and he runs like cycling and mountain bike tours over there in Taiwan. And
wow.
Yeah, like, it's just really nice people and nice culture.
Yeah. Yeah, Mike, like, he's like some of the best times you have, and even like the fans still, like, he's got a fan base there.
Massive, yeah.
A huge fan base there. And he says it's very rewarding to go coach in a place like that, you know?
Yeah. He also likes the bubble milk tea, and they do really good bubble milk tea over
serious?
there. Yeah, he loves it. Loves it.
Oh, that's cool.
So,
I don't tease him.
Nah,
that's cool. Yeah, as I said, he loves that place.
Yeah, it's good.
Laguna Seca, the first time you got to ride there, what do you think?
Cool, but not as good as I thought it was going to be.
Wow, okay.
More hype than reality, I guess, from my experience. The corkscrew is cool. Like, the first time you come into that, you kind of come over going, where is this going? But once you've done that a couple of times, that's not the coolest part of the track. That next turn, Rainy, is the way that...
down to the left.
Yeah, the drop down to the left. That is awesome. And the straight, like, just being pinned over this blind rise, just hoping that you've got the angle just right to, you know, not run off the track on the other side. That's pretty cool. But there's America has a lot of cool tracks.
Yeah.
So for me, Laguna was probably not one of my favourite.
A very hyped circuit, isn't it? Yep.
Yeah. And I think with the battles and stuff like that you've seen in the past through the corkscrew, it hypes it up a lot more. And I think from a racing perspective, it brings very good racing. But from a rider point of view, there's cooler tracks for sure. What
were some of the other ones you got to ride over there?
Oh, we've done a heap. Like Miller Motorsport Park, Barber Motorsport Park.
Did you like Barber?
Barber's my favourite.
Really?
Yep.
That's a good place, eh?
Absolute favourite.
Alabama, isn't it?
Yeah, Alabama.
Yeah.
Built on an old dairy farm, I think it is. But
yeah, the gentleman was an ice cream mogul, hey? Like, he made billions of dollars off ice cream or something, hey?
Yep. Yep.
Wow.
He actually built it. He's got a museum at the track with hundreds and hundreds of cool bikes, like from everywhere. And he built it so that he could test the bikes on the track.
Is that what it's for?
I believe so, yeah.
Wow.
Because it actually, the base of the museum where the workshop is, there's a road that runs straight out onto the racetrack.
Yeah.
So I believe it was originally designed for that and to give jobs to the locals and stuff like that. And he still employs everyone's local and he keeps all the money in, and like it's just an amazing facility and a really nice story behind it as well.
Absolutely. I went there in, I think it was 2014 or 16, and I was in the lift with him.
Oh, really?
I didn't realise till I was reading the article, and like this guy, it's him. Oh, this is Barber Motorsport Park, man, and we've been in the lift because obviously the museum's like 5 or 6 stories or something crazy. It's one of the best. It's probably the best automotive thing I've ever been to.
It's
I think,
amazing.
by far.
Yeah.
But, so good to ride though. Really fun.
Yeah,
ride.
fun.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of undulation and it's just a really interesting circuit. It keeps you busy all the time.
Yep.
So it's really cool. Yeah.
When did you stop? And you probably haven't stopped racing, but when did you stop racing to go coaching?
I didn't really stop racing to go coaching.
Okay.
I stopped racing mostly when I broke my leg pretty bad in a motocross accident. That kind of slowed me down. And
Is that in Australia?
Yeah. It was at Reedy Creek,
Ooh.
just down the road.
Yep.
Yeah, that was just my mistake. I messed up and came down and broke my femur. But it was kind of around that time that I'd been accepted into the superbike school, and I was moving from the Gold Coast down to Melbourne. And I had quite a substantial recovery on the leg. So it's kind of like that. The racing side of it all got pushed aside, and I guess my coaching career started.
Right.
And it wasn't because I was like, oh, okay, I'm done with that or whatever. It was just the situation at the time.
Because you've still done some races as well. You know, it's not. That's where I was like, you're not retired from racing, because if the right opportunity came up at the right time, no doubt you'd put the leathers on and go race something again.
Yeah, I enjoy the racing.
Yep.
Like, it definitely gets me a little bit more nervous than it used to now because
Really?
I don't do it as much.
Yep.
Yeah. But I enjoy the competition side of it. But for me, a lot of it now is just like improving my own riding and trying to beat myself, I guess.
Are you a good rider now? As in technique rider?
Oh, I would say I look okay if you watch me from the sidelines.
Yep.
Yeah, I would say it's fairly clean technique, but can I push all those skills to the limit of, an ASBK guy? Definitely not.
Yep.
And I think, I haven't ridden for a bit, getting a little bit older, I guess a little bit wiser,
Yeah.
a little less fearless. So all of that kind of comes out of it a bit, but I've learned a lot in the last 12 months, and when I found myself down at Phillip Island the other day, I was like, oh, okay, I'm starting to understand, I understand more now about riding, and I feel like I could probably push faster than I had previously,
Wow.
given the opportunity.
Right bike, right tyres, right technique. It's a
Yeah.
good package, when you got that, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
When did you go to Europe?
So this was first year in Europe. Last year was first year in Europe.
How that's a huge move.
Yeah.
How was it? Like, you've based yourself Andorra?
Andorra we're in now, yeah.
And is that's the hub, isn't it, at the moment? Like, that's where a lot of riders are, aren't they?
There is a lot of riders up there. I think a lot for a lot of the high level riders for tax reasons, because the tax in Spain and places like that is massive.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so a lot of their hard earnings kind of goes away with that.
Yep.
So Andorra is really good, but it's also such a beautiful place. Like, if you are into the outdoors and being active, there's no better place.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of like a little bit, I liken it to like New Zealand.
Yep.
It's just beautiful. There's, you can walk out the door and go riding, go hiking. It's safe. Everyone respects the athletes there. There's a lot of high-level athletes from all walks of life.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's really kind of a nice place to be.
That's cool. So who were you coaching last year over there?
I started with Harry Voigt.
Yep.
So we did the first half of the year with that pretty much until he had his big accident with his leg
Yep.
in Portimao. And then after that, I was working with Senna Aegis. So,
How's that all going?
yeah, pretty good.
Seems to be good, eh?
Yeah, it's getting there.
What was some of the transitions, the stuff that you had to really, I guess there's things to iron out, or like how do you start with someone? Like, at that age, you've got somewhat of a blank canvas to work with.
Yeah.
How do you start with someone like, hi, I'm Steph. Yeah. How does it start as a riding coach?
The kids are easy. Like,
Right.
believe it or not, they're easier than adults are
Yep.
because the kids will just throw kind of blind faith at you. And if you tell them something, they go out, do it, it works, you've got them. Like, they're sold, you know, they just want, they're like, give me the next thing, give me the next thing. So adults are a little bit more skeptical. We hold on to our kind of ideas and beliefs a little bit stronger.
Right.
So kids are easy in that regard. And I was pretty lucky. Like, I've worked with Harry Voigt for a couple of years now since he started in Asia Talent Cup, basically.
Yep.
And then Senna was the same. I've been working with him since I think he was 12 years old. He's 16 now. So, yeah, like I said, I started when they were young and they just wanted to go fast. And if you could give them something to help with that, then then they were on board. So
what's your life over there? Like, tell me what you do. Like, you're obviously riding coach, but you must spend a lot of time behind the scenes as well with them as well, yeah?
Yeah, every day.
Every day.
You live with them and every day. Like with Senna, he's just like an Energizer bunny. That kid never stops. So we get up in the morning and it's like, what are we doing today? And, you know, we're going cycling or we're going hiking or, you know, doing something. There's always something. So most of the days, I guess, are pretty ideal in terms of a lifestyle. We wake up, we have a nice breakfast and we go cycling for a few hours. We'll have some lunch.
Yeah.
Probably do a little bit of schoolwork in the afternoon and that's the day.
That's day done.
Yeah, it's the day.
So he's over there just with you?
No, his dad's there as well.
Oh, his dad came as well. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's yeah. And what about coaching? Like, do you do like mini moto stuff or?
Yeah, we're always working on something. There's
Yeah.
always, no matter where you go, there's something to work on. Whether it's like, you know, 1 lap pace, whether it's, you know, seeing if they can do a full stint of 20 minutes at the same lap time, consistency. Whether you're working on rider technique, depends on the bike, the track. You know, we walk away from a race weekend and we go, okay, we need to improve this, this and this. And then based on what training we've got coming up, we'll go, okay, we'll work on this chunk of it here. And then if we don't get that done, we'll finish it here. Or, you know, we might take this element and work at it at this track because this has specific, you know, requirements that can fit what we need for that. And yeah, so it's just the race meetings really are like the performance and the show. And we go, okay, how do we do?
Yep.
What do we need to work on? And then we use those days to pick through the pieces, yeah.
Wow. How much of your job is watching someone else? Like watching other riders?
All of it.
It really is?
Yeah, like when they get to this point in their riding, like you look at Senna or Harry Voigt or Harry Curry or any of the kids that are overseas, they're at that top level already. Like they're so fast to be within a second or a second and a half of the guys at the front of those fields. Like any top 10 in those fields over in CEV usually can go straight to the World Championship and slot right in.
Yep.
So they're at that kind of peak already. So to physically watch what's going on, like to watch the rider in isolation, it's very difficult to pick up what's going on. Like, you know, someone will sit there and watch and go, oh, they're riding so good, but you need a reference. And so you're always watching like, okay, what's this person doing? This person's faster. What are they doing? Why are they doing it? And how could that relate to Senna?
Yep.
You know, do his skill sets fit that type of thing? So it's just constantly like kind of watching and evaluating and seeing how it all works.
Do you have, you mentioned football coaches and stuff before, big part of their week's video sessions, like their video, because a lot of theirs is, you know, blocking for tactics and stuff like that. Do you have like say Pedro Acosta, do you have a video through the week? Sometimes you watch the MotoGP and analyse it yourself?
For sure, yeah.
Because like he's at the moment like incredible. And I'll ask you more about him, but that must be a big part of what you do too, yeah?
Yeah, video and data. Like we're lucky now that we live in this day and age where bikes have data.
Yep.
So, and if you buy into a good team, they've usually got data from a pretty significant rider. So you've got the data to compare as well as video. But, I mean, it may be a little bit different because if you're watching Pedro and things like that, but you got to take into account the actual individual rider.
Yep.
And each rider is physiologically different and their skill is different and their bike is different. So what Pedro Acosta can do on that bike may not necessarily be the right thing for this person to do on that bike.
Yep.
So you need to, we watch and evaluate what's going on, but then you've also got to then take that and go, okay, why are they doing that? What is the end goal that they're trying to achieve and why is that better than what this person's doing now?
Yep. It's interesting. Like, you know how addicted to the sport I am.
Yeah.
Like, that side of it's so interesting to hear about what you've got, the access to things. Data. So if say Senna rides for a team, he has access to someone else's data. Like, if you're in a good team, for instance, that's got that,
Yep.
they'll supply that obviously to learn off and things. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't supply it outside of the event, so you can't just take it home and
So it's just while you're there.
Yeah, of course. It's they've
intellectual
spent a lot
property.
of money and
Yep.
worked hard to get that data.
Yep.
So, like with Senna in the 658 team, they had data from like Lorenzo Fallon and Tatsuki Suzuki in the World Championship. So
Yep.
data like that sometimes is relevant. Sometimes, we look at the lap time from them to them and it's too far apart. So it's like, well, there's no point looking at that here. We need something in the middle. So maybe it's from like Josito Garcia, who is their main rider in CEV.
Yep.
But they've always got someone that has got data that you can kind of learn from and look at and reference against.
How did you learn that stuff? Just time?
Yeah, just time and out of necessity, really. Like,
Yep.
it's...
Because that's massive, eh?
It is massive, and you can learn so much from it if you understand how to read it. And when I first started looking at it, well, when I first went over to Europe, right, I couldn't go the year before because of COVID.
Yep.
I couldn't get permission to leave Australia. So
Not possible.
No, it wasn't possible. So I didn't end up in Europe with the kids in their first year with the 658 team.
Yep.
So going over to Europe this year, one of the first things I noticed was that they use the data a lot. Like, the teams will show the kids the data and reference other data. And the biggest thing was the kids didn't know how to read it.
Okay.
So they're looking at this data and they're being told these certain things that they need to do, sometimes in good English, sometimes in broken English. And they're being told, like, okay, you need to brake later, or you're too fast in the middle of the turn,
right.
or your line is this. But the bit that the kids don't have is they don't have that kind of understanding to break it down and go, okay, well, if that's what's happening, how do I then achieve that, right? Where you can look at the data and go, okay, well, they're too fast in the middle of the corner. So then you look at the brake trace and you go, okay, well, that person's using a lot more rear brake than what this kid is now. So we need to build that into their riding. But the kids don't have that. They just go, okay, I'm too fast in the middle of the corner. I need to go slower. But then they go, well, if I go slower, how am I going to be faster? So then they kind of get in this confusion and they try and apply these things but don't really know what they're trying to apply. And like I found when I got over there, we actually had to undo some things because they just misinterpreted what these people were trying to say. And it wasn't because of what the team was saying. It was because the kids over here aren't exposed to any of that. Like, data's only just come in to ASBK as being allowed. So they just haven't had any exposure to how to actually use this information and process it. So I just learnt because I went, okay, well, here's a shortfall that we've got with these kids.
Yep.
How do we fix that? I need to understand it myself so then I can help them to understand it.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And like, both you and I just spent 2 days at the track together and looking at some of the telemetry from what the bikes in testing can have and that. Wow. It's deep, eh? There's so much knowledge out there.
Yeah, I've probably spent like the last 6 months solid just learning as much as I can, and I reckon I've learnt 5%. Like, there is so much to learn and understand.
Do you think that's the future of the sport? Like, not the future of the sport, but a big part of the education of the sport is going to be through data, yeah?
Yes, I think...
Can there be too much?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's why now we're seeing coaches come into like MotoGP.
Yep.
So they've had data for years, but there's the human element that the data doesn't consider. So, like you look at in the teams, like you've got Ducati with Pecco and Jack, right? They've got very different riding styles. So you've got two very different data sets there, both quite fast. Pecco's obviously just, kind of edging at the forefront of that team at the moment. So, if you look at it and you go, well, how come Jack hasn't adopted some of maybe what Pecco's doing to help with the tyres and things like that?
Yep.
And that's because there's that human element. You can sit there and look at the data, but you've got to know how to take that and actually build it into what you've currently got to then make it work. So that's
sense.
where the coach is like an important link between reading data and being able to use it as a rider.
So having Casey come back into that team there, you'd have to think that'd be part of that. You know, that would have been a huge part towards the end of last year.
Yeah, I believe so. And you listen to Casey talk in one of his interviews. I think he said when he went to Ducati, he made it work because, you know, he didn't just try and make the bike work for him. He also made himself work for the bike. So there's a compromise. Like, you know, the bike wants to be ridden a certain way. There's certain characteristics that the bike has over others. And, you know, you can adapt the bike so much to suit you, but there's sometimes you've got to come to the party on that as well. And I think that's where Casey has that link of like, okay, well, you know, we can adjust the bike this much, but you're going to have to do this as well to get the ultimate result. So I think Casey's going to be a massive asset to that team and really kind of highlight the importance of having someone in there who understands it, can break it down and deliver it to the riders so they can use it.
Do you see, like, say, we'll say a Maverick Vinales, right? When everything's like a crystal clear day, it's the fastest person in the field. Then there's someone like a Marc Marquez that can ride a bike that looks terrible and then can do everything. With your coaching, is that something that you give to people that there's some days that you need to have a bike that's going to be terrible that you still need to ride around?
100%.
Yeah?
Yeah. And
that's a huge part to it, eh?
Yeah, you're never going to have a bike that's perfect. Like, I guess a good example is when Senna was at the Bend this year. The Honda was brand new. I think we'd tested it once or twice and we got a base set up on it. And I got nabbed at the airport and thrown straight into hotel quarantine. So I didn't even make it to the track, and I'm the one that he was relying on to do the data and the suspension. Wow. So he's, FaceTiming me and Skyping me and sending me the data, and I'm trying to read it and, we couldn't get it to work. There was too much missing from me not being there, not being able to see it, not being able to listen to all the little fine conversations that he has with me, his dad, that type of thing. So we just didn't quite put all the pieces together, and he was still fast. But, like, on the data, there's going into the turn 6, like the hairpin, he had massive chatter. Like, just the front end was just out of control in that turn and another one. Yep. And he didn't have a choice. He had to ride around it because at that moment in time, in that session, I think it was a qualifying, we couldn't fix it. And it was what it was. And, he understands enough about the riding and what he needs to do to go, okay, well, this is a problem. I need a workaround for it. Ideally, that problem wouldn't be there, but it's not always going to be ideal. And it's very, very rarely ideal. Yep.
Have you ever ridden a perfect bike?
No. Not that I can remember. No. Wow. Not one where I just get on and go, this does exactly what I want it to do. Yeah. Yeah, it's always been something that you're like, oh, it's not quite as good as what I want, or it's always something.
With and I'm going to say it wrong, but they're kids. Like, to me, they're like 16, 17 years old sort of thing. How much of it do you have to help with mentally? Like, you're with them all the time. Like, they're away from home. What are they like when they're away? What do you like when you're away? Like,
it's tough for everyone
when
you're away from home. Yeah. Like, I mean, it helps when you can get a kind of base set up there and you start to develop some friends and things like that, for sure. Like, Senna in the end, he had a really good group of people to go riding with and train with and stuff like that. But it's still hard, You're in a foreign country. The kids work hard all the time. Their only reason for being there is to be the best rider that they can be. So they go to a weekend and they have a bad weekend and they come away from it like, questioning, can I do this? Everyone's here for me. This is, what I'm here for, and I'm not even doing a good job. So it's tough for them for sure. Like they have, an emotional roller coaster up and down all through the year, but I don't think it's unique to kids. I think it's unique to the sport, People don't realise how much goes into it and how many little pieces need to be in line for it to go perfectly. And there's always something that's, out that we don't see. So for it to go up and down mentally and emotionally, it's difficult. So, there's a lot you've got to kind of keep grounding them with in that, I guess, and just make sure that you bring them back to where they are now, and just wherever we are, wherever that is, good, bad, we just keep working forward from there.
You're a coach in like many facets, though. It's not just riding, is it?
No.
It's a lot of things.
No, so much of the sport's mental. Yeah. And if you've got a mentally strong rider who's in a good headspace, then, you can achieve a lot more than someone who's not.
What's been some of the biggest things that, like, how long you've been coaching now? It'd be 10, 12 years?
12 years,
12 years?
I guess, yeah.
What's been some of the biggest, like, key moments, like things that you look at and go, if I could just teach everyone this, they'd be a safer rider or a better rider? Is there certain things?
In terms of skill?
Yeah. Vision?
Vision's a big part.
Yeah.
For sure, but vision doesn't bring control. You know, vision helps with control, but if you don't understand what you're physically doing on the motorcycle to achieve a certain result, the vision doesn't help, you know. So for me, it's probably steering. Like steering and use of the throttle would be the two big ones.
Yeah.
That, you know, if you can steer the bike and put it in the direction you want when you want it there, then, you know, that's half the game. You've got a lot of control over the bike. And then one of the most, I guess, or biggest misapplications is the use of the throttle. People generally using it too much or rolling on too early and getting themselves into trouble in terms of line. So, yeah, steering and gas would be the two main things. If you can master any two things, do that first.
Wow. Yeah, I as I said, I haven't done a school. I'm going to do a school or some form of coaching. It's interesting to find out what the, you know, a few key things are, you know.
Yeah.
We done the test 2 days. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about that.
Sure.
You obviously observed a lot of other riders there.
At the Queensland test,
Queensland test?
Yeah, yep.
Who looked good?
Mike looked nice.
Yep.
Brian Starring, he's starting to gel with that Ducati now and I guess riding it how the Ducati needs to be ridden.
Yep.
So, yeah, he looks like he's starting to come on strong as well.
Day one, Mike looked really, really good straight away. Obviously done a lot of laps with QR as well. Interesting to see the bikes progress over the 2 days. As a worker there, you're a worker there as well. To see how they, you know, a few of them, like a couple of the BMs coming into turn 3, just chopping, and like by the end of day 2, it was like watching a different machine come into a few of the braking zones and stuff. That's cool to see, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I like seeing that progression, and watching from the sidelines, you can kind of watch and go, okay, well they're having a good day. Yeah. And they're not having a good day, you know, and everyone has good and bad days, and you never really know the full story. Like they might be testing different tyres, different suspension, working through different things. Yeah, electronics is a massive part. So you never really know where everyone's at. So I try not to judge too much just based on what you're seeing in that moment.
Yep. But
for sure, it's nice when you can see a team turn up and they're clearly, you know, not on the pace or having problems, and then by the end you know, the bike's working nice, the rider's working well, and, you know, they're doing some fast times. So it's pretty cool to watch that progression.
Definitely. I said it to a few people yesterday, and I think this is something for ASBK. Like you learn so much more at those days than a race day. And this is where, like, you know, your motocross coverage, you like the AMA, hey?
Yeah.
The AMA coverage is unreal for all that behind the scenes sort of stuff.
I do cover it well, actually. I've gotten into that more recently. Senna's kind of gotten me into that a lot. Yeah, I never used to follow it much, but
they cover all that stuff really well.
Yeah.
The race day is like a minor part of it. It's like football in a way nowadays. Like you see so much of Monday to Friday that the Saturday, Sunday is good, but all that other thing. And, you know, being around the paddock for the 2 days there's so many stories that are missing out that really are more of a story than what being at the races are about. Needs to be more told, I feel.
Yeah, well, if you look at what they did with Formula One with that Drive to Survive.
Oh, yeah.
Brilliant, right? Like,
absolutely.
I like Formula One, but prior to that series, I never really followed it or was that interested. But you start to invest in the personalities and the struggles and the triumphs and things like that, and you just go, they're just people like us, you know, that are just working through everything and doing the best they can. And their budgets are a little bit bigger, admittedly, but
of course,
same sort of process. You know, it's cool to see, and they're actually doing one on GP. I don't know when it'll be out, but
Amazon one, hey.
Yeah, yep. So they've been filming that, so that'll be really cool. But I think for sure, and it's being more acknowledged these days, that that's what people are interested in, is the human factor behind it.
For sure, like the human experience. Like, you know, there's so much. Everyone has a conversation that days like, oh, how's such and such. Like, there's so much stuff happening there. did Lachlan do a 7.8? Yeah, I think so. Maybe. Dash said it did.
His Dash said it.
Who got an 8.0? Who got this? There's so many different stories amongst a day like that doesn't need to be like a high-produced Netflix series, but people really want to see it. And like with the stuff I was doing with Ducati, I feel that's we're putting like a day release out of each thing that we did each day, and it's good to have. I find that's the content that I want to watch, so that's why we put it out. So I hope that happens as it moves on.
Yeah, I think for sure. And people like yourself doing that type of thing is good for the sport, because it brings more interest into it, and it shows the real side of the sport. So, yeah, if we can get more people like you doing that, then I think the sport
tell them the truth.
The truth, yeah. And that's what people want. They just want real.
Yeah.
There's so much fake out there these days that they just want the real, and no one cares if you made a mistake here or you're having trouble with that. It's nice because they can relate to it. They go, oh, he's just another human being like me.
Absolutely. And like the days of, I'm going to sponsor this, my such and such, the bike went well today. That's so boring.
Yeah.
I don't want to see that. I want to see, like, we did an interview with Ben, and Ben's raw. It was honest.
Yeah, I think we're in this awkward stage at the moment where people want to see that.
Yeah.
But then the people delivering that message are still, you still got to look after your sponsors, and you still got to remain professional. And so I think everyone's just starting to figure out, how do we be real without being damaging? And I think that it's kind of going through that evolution now, and I think we're going to see more and more kind of real stuff out there.
It's nice. And there's some good people in the sport for this as well. You're with Aidan Wagner, coaching.
Yep.
How did a few days go out there for that?
Oh.
Obviously addicted to track with Mark McGregor as well. So how'd that go?
Yeah, good and bad.
Yep.
I mean, ideally you turn up at a track and you go seconds faster than the first session you got there and you leave happy, but it does, like I said, it doesn't always work like that. And Aidan had a crash on that bike down at Phillip Island at the ASBK test, which was not all that long ago. It's come back up, rebuilt. We didn't realise the swing arm was bent.
Right.
And so for the first day, he was riding around on a bent swing arm. So every time he'd let go of the brake and put the rear wheel on the ground, the thing would, kind of hop and dance. So we just couldn't do anything with that. So first day was, a bit of a write-off, change the swing arm, come back the next day. And then, we started from there, basically. And we were pretty happy with the setup in the end, but we were testing different tyres. Like we were doing a race length run on the tyre we're going to be running at Phillip Island.
Yep.
Because he crashed down there and we didn't get the opportunity to do that. So, we didn't really post as fast a time as what we want. But in saying that, we're happy with where the bike ended up, and we believe that we can go faster next time we go there. So good and bad. We didn't feel like we achieved quite as much as what we should have, but we did get a lot done in the same token.
It's a tough thing, and same as what you said before. You don't know where people are completely at. You're doing race runs or you're trying to set that fastest lap of the day. Who knows? But how'd you pick up on the swing arm?
Aidan picked it up.
Really?
Yeah. Yep. So it was bent perfectly like sideways like that. So it was just, you could line everything up and it looked kind of straight, but it just wasn't. So he actually picked it up when he kept saying, like, when I'm letting go of the brake and putting the rear wheel on the ground, it just keeps wanting to hop left and right, because essentially it was, out. So when it come down, it was bouncing around. So he actually picked it up. Like, he's got incredible feel and he knows what he's doing and what's going on that bike pretty much every second he's riding around that track. So he's a big asset to us in that way. That's
incredible. Yeah, because I was wondering, like, you go through a day without noticing it, and you spend a lot of time at the rear of a bike. So the rider picks it up.
Yeah, rider picked it up.
You're here till what, March 6th?
Yeah, be about then, I guess.
ASBK, obviously next round, you're going to that.
Yep.
Working with Aidan, anyone else at this one?
Senna. Yeah, so Senna will be there on the 600. Yep, on the Honda.
Same one,
Yep, and then, Aidan on the R1.
So what's the rest of the year hold out? You obviously go back to Andorra.
Yeah, we head back over early March and then start testing Moto 2 for Senna. So he'll be on the Moto 2 in CEV this year, so testing will start for that, and we'll kick the season off in May, I think it is.
Wow. And how's, Spanish CEV Moto 2? What's it like being around the field? Like, what tell me what's it like being over there?
Pretty much like being over here. It's
Same
kind
deal?
of it's kind of funny, yeah. Like you go to a track day over there,
Yeah.
and you know if you put earplugs in and couldn't hear them talking, you'd swear you're just at a racetrack in Australia. Like similar sort of styles of people, and you know same groups of people having a laugh, and the bikes all kind of the same. Like it's funny how many similarities there are in it. The race meeting's a little bit different, a little bit more professional, I guess. Bigger outfits, bigger budget.
Yeah.
So we're quite professional in Australia, but we don't have the same money as what they do over there. So a lot of the teams are feeders into the World Championship, so they have bigger budgets and a bigger show. But it's in terms of the vibe and everything, it's quite similar. Yeah.
What was it like riding a trials bike?
Difficult.
They're weird, eh?
They are not like a normal motorcycle at all. Nah, I remember like we went out with Leon Camrier had just got back from testing somewhere, and Senna and Leon were like, "Oh, we'll go for a ride. You should come." I was like, "Yeah, all right, as long as it's going to be an easy one." And we took off, and I was just like, "What is this thing?" And it's like I'm trying to ride it in too high RPM, and yeah, I'm sure they were looking at me going, "Can you even ride a bike?" Like I was
on the coach.
I'm just going, "Oh, this is going to be a long day."
Yeah.
But no, after half an hour or so, I was starting to get a bit more comfortable on it, and in the end, I was getting not too bad on it.
They're just weird, eh?
They are weird. They're so different.
And as a dirt track road race sort of thing, just standing in that weird position the whole time. It's just odd. It just doesn't feel right.
It's not like any other bike. You can't liken it to like, oh, it's like this or it's like that. No, it's its own unique thing. But it does give you an appreciation. Like I always enjoyed watching trials, like the pros do it, and I just watch it now and I go, I can't even get over a rock like this big, and they're jumping stuff 6-7 feet in the
houses.
air.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
How's Leon go?
Yeah, he's good.
Is he?
Yeah, he has a crack too. He's pretty good.
Was he doing coaching for a bit?
Yeah, so he was, he does a broad range of stuff. So he does a bit of coaching when he can. He's super busy.
Yep.
So obviously running the HRC team in World Superbike.
Yep.
So he does a bit of coaching when he can, but he's a really good sounding board for Senna. Like he's a good mentor for Senna, and him and Senna talk all the time, and he kind of just gives a bit of perspective to Senna and gives a lot of experience to both me and him as well. Like, he'll give us some ideas on, at this track, this is kind of what you can expect. Be careful of this and that type of thing. So, yeah, Leon's great. And Leon's obviously been a rider. He's been through it all. So, if Senna's struggling with something mentally or got some problems, he can always just call on Leon and use him as a sounding board and get some really good solid advice. So Leon's been awesome, and Leon handles all of Senna's fitness training as well.
Yeah, right.
He's got a really good group of guys in Andorra that handle all the physio and the fitness and everything like that. So yeah, he's a good dude.
It's so well set up there, eh? To go and move into that. If that's your path, so well set up, isn't it?
To be a professional athlete, you've got everything you need at your doorstep. Yeah.
What's the rest of the year hold? Going to CEV?
Yep.
That'll be travelling, because that doesn't just encompass Spain though, does it? You get to go to some different places as well.
Portugal,
yeah.
But I think the Moto2 doesn't go to Italy, so I think it is just Spain.
Just Spain for this
Spain
one.
and Portugal for this year.
So Portimao, Valencia, Jerez,
Estoril.
Oh yeah.
Another one.
Tell you what, Spain and Portugal, probably some of the best tracks. Catalunya,
yeah, another one.
Some of the best tracks in the world, right? Really.
They are. Yeah, Portimao, I haven't ridden it,
Yeah.
but it's on the bucket list for sure. It looks amazing. And same with the Valencia, the way that circuit flows looks really cool. So
yeah,
definitely have to try and get on a bike this year.
For sure. Well, thanks so much for obviously taking your time out to come in here. Like, time's of the essence. You're here for 9 weeks.
Yeah.
You've been at a track for 9 weeks, 7 nines. You've been at a track for probably 40 days of the time here.
Yeah.
Quarantine.
We didn't have that, luckily. Oh, well, in South Australia, I got 6 days there, but
but not the 14.
Not the 14, which was nice.
So actually, I'm going to ask you, what happened in South Australia with that? Like, how did you get caught up in that?
So I think it was because we flew, because there was, myself, Senna, Jono, who's Senna's father. We came back from Spain, and And I think it was 9 or 10 days after we got back, we went to Adelaide.
Right.
So at the time when we arrived, Adelaide had 7 days quarantine for international arrivals.
Yep.
So technically we'd already passed that time when we went to Tailem Bend.
Yep. So you flew into Sydney?
So we flew into Sydney,
Yeah.
were there for 9 days, went over to Tailem Bend.
Yep.
Senna, myself and his mother flew, Jono drove.
Yep.
And then there was another, few people who had been over at Asia Talent Cup and things like that who were in a similar position.
Yep.
But they must have driven in. I think it was because we were flying that we were on, on the register.
Yep.
And so I got to the airport and they go, oh, anyone been overseas in the last 14 days into this line? There's like 40 of us in this line. I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. And then they asking some questions and then go, oh, just sit over there. We're going to ask you some more questions. I'm like, oh, no, here we go. And there's like 4 or 5 of us sitting there, and then we get taken down to this, isolation quarantine room, and they're basically like, okay, we're taking you to hotel quarantine. I was like, oh, hang on a second. I've got this entry check from South Australia that says you can enter,
Yep.
no quarantine. And then it turns out they changed the rule like the day before or something. We got there to 14 days
Yep.
quarantine if you come from overseas. So they were like, okay, you've got to go into quarantine. And I was like, but there's other people I know that haven't been subject to this.
Yeah.
And then they're going, oh, well, give us the names. I'm like, oh, no, I'm not playing that game. Like, I just don't want to be here, And they're like, okay, well, fill out an exemption.
Yeah.
Went through that process, and they go, it'll be granted tomorrow or you can fly home. So I went to hotel quarantine, and basically once you got in there,
Yeah.
you were stuck. And that was like, you couldn't
geez.
talk to anyone, you couldn't call anyone.
6 days.
Well, originally they were saying 14, and I was like,
So
what?
who pays for that?
They pay for it because it's not something that you've, signed up for.
Yep.
So they pay for it, which it wasn't really the problem. It was more that
You're going
everyone's
there.
at the racetrack,
Yeah.
and I'm sitting here stuck in quarantine, and
Just
I couldn't
made you
even
away
go
from
home.
Andorra, like from Spain,
Yeah.
to go to Adelaide.
Yeah.
Like, it's a big journey.
Yeah.
Jeez. So that's how it happened, eh?
That's how it happened. And then obviously they turned up at the track on Saturday Arvo and picked up Senna and put him in under the same guide so that the rules had changed to 14 days. So I'm guessing it's just because we were on the flight and, they had a record of us flying in. So if we'd driven, it may have been different. But it just, we just got caught out with the rule change, being unlucky timing and situation.
There's a couple of other semi-profile people that would have been pretty tied up in that too, I reckon.
I'm not sure. I don't know the exact timelines of everyone, but I know there was a couple other people in it. But even Jono, for example, he was on the same flights as us.
It's the same deal.
And when they turned up at the track, they were only asking for me and Senna.
Yep.
And I was already in quarantine, and Senna was, obviously there. But Jono was there as well, and they didn't ask. So it was just, the whole admin side of it just seemed really poor and
So you
poorly
basically
executed.
got put in jail. Like, maybe tomorrow we'll get you out. But basically at that point it's all over.
Yeah, once you were there, they were like, no, we've just got 14 days written here. I was like, oh, no. Yeah,
Wow.
that's not what you want.
No, definitely not.
So anyway.
When we used to ride together at the Supermoto stuff, did you ever think that you'd be doing this stuff now? Like what you're doing?
No, not really.
It's a big journey.
Yeah, it is. And I guess it's not really something that you look at as a career either, as a coach.
Right.
Like I for myself, probably most coaches in Australia, most are just part-time or do it for a hobby or, they have a real job outside of it. So to do it as my sole job, I never really thought that that'd be the case. So, yeah.
It's a good journey.
Yeah, I like it and I'm pretty happy with it. Happy to keep going with it.
I'm stoked of you. And I like, we've spoken at Phillip Islands and different things, and we don't get to catch up too much, but it's just cool to see where you've come from to do this. Like it's obviously a dream for you to do it. It's cool to see where you've got to.
Yeah, thank you. It's good. I'm enjoying the journey and it'll keep going for a few years more yet.
Awesome. Well, I want to come to Andorra. I reckon that sounds like a great place to be. So now borders open in 12 days. We never know, we might be able to get over to races again.
Yeah. If you're in that part of the world, shoot us a message for sure.
Be cool. Well, thanks for coming in. Appreciate it, and we'll see you at the island.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers.
That's all we have time for on today's show. If you get the chance, head over to YouTube and hit subscribe on the Talk and Chatter page. Also, head over to iTunes and give us a star rating and a review there. It all helps to get the podcast out there. A big thank you goes to everyone that's been doing this already, and we'll be back with another show soon.